Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Late Night in the Midlands. My name is Ira Robinson, and tonight I'm standing in for Michael Vara, who is away from his computer tonight. He is not available to go live tonight, so he asked if I could stand in his stead. We have a really interesting show on tap for you guys tonight. If you guys want to join us in our chat room and join in with the community, you can go to lnmradionetwork.com. That's where all of our community members join in, and it's always a really fun time in there, always a good time to get involved. It's a very friendly group of people, and we love them all. So, again, lnmradionetwork.com, that is our website. You guys can go there to get all of the archives for all of our past shows. We are Mondays through Fridays, 9 o'clock p.m. until midnight Eastern Standard Time, every week, every day, and hopefully you guys will tune in and enjoy the content that we bring you. We have all kinds of guests, and no topic is taboo. We talk about everything on this show. So again, lnmradionetwork.com. Take advantage of it. You guys can also become subscribers and get access to all of the archives. We also have a live stream that's playing with all of our shows available on that stream 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So yeah, come on in and join in with us. My own website is openeyesnetwork.com if you guys want to take a listen to any of the shows that I do. So tonight, I have a special guest with me. Her name is Maggie Heart. Maggie Heart is a psychic, a clairvoyant, a medium. She is a great person. She has a wonderful heart and a heck of a great laugh. And I thought that I would bring her on tonight and discuss all kinds of things paranormal related, and hopefully you guys will enjoy the show as much as I do. Maggie and I do a show together called the Positude Podcast, which airs on the first and third Sundays of every month and is available for download on openeyesnetwork.com. It's a show that's designed specifically geared towards a positive attitude and bringing a good positive message to the people. No negativity on the show whatsoever. It's a really great show, and hopefully you guys will take advantage of it because, boy, we need a lot more positivity in this world, don't we, Maggie?
Yes, we do, Ira. How are you?
I'm great, and welcome to the show, Maggie. I'm glad that you're here tonight, and I've been looking forward to this interview with you. I always have a great time conversing with you because, you know, we both think so similarly. We both believe that the paranormal is pretty normal, isn't it?
Certainly is. It's nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
You bet. So why don't we get started and go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your background, and we'll go from there.
Wonderful. Well, I'm a psychic medium, empath, clairaudient, clairvoyant, and telepath, and I do a lot of healing work as well. I was born this way. I was born gifted. Both of my grandmothers were gifted. One in Ireland was born with the brow, and one in Italy who was well respected back in Italy. She was known what was typically known in Italy as a strega. And so I've had these gifts all of my life. And I was asked to keep them quiet when I was a child. I went to Catholic school, you know, and then when I became 14, I was told by my family, you know what, your grandmothers were gifted and the things that you've been seeing all your life, you've really been seeing, you know. And so I still, for most of my life, my early childhood, left it alone and, you know, would just keep my experiences pretty much to myself and within the family. And then I came to the public probably, I don't know, close to 10 years ago now, maybe. And so I've been doing shows and things ever since. I do spiritual warfare, ghost investigations, clearings, entity attachment release, a lot of healing work. Readings. I don't usually use cards, though. It's all from above, so I just hold the person's hand and look into their eyes.
You do things pretty intuitively, correct?
Yeah. I don't use a lot of tools in my readings. I use cards occasionally. People like something shiny to look at, but I hold their hand and feel their energy and look into their eyes. And, you know, my gifts come from above, so I don't need all of those tools. And so that makes it really interesting because a lot of people aren't used to that. They're not used to seeing someone who can just, you know, get intuition and guidance from them, or give guidance to them for them without a, you know, a pendulum or cards or, you know, and I don't channel at all. I don't anything at all into my body.
Right. I'm kind of the same way. I've always done things really intuitively myself, and I've never really used cards or boards or, you know, scrying wheels or any of the other, you know, things that go with it. I just never, I don't know. I tried using it at one point in time just to see if I could do anything with it, and it just never really worked for me. So I just said, okay, well, I guess I'll go with what I know.
Well, I think think we've all had experiences with that kind of thing. I mean, it's not that I haven't owned those instruments in the past and used them before. I just, the last couple of years especially, shifted away from that because there's so much of a gateway there when you play with things that you don't know, or there are just so many things are portals to the dark side that people just don't realize. And
Well,
when you use tools like that, you're really opening the door.
that's kind of a
But
good way to go too. I mean, when it comes to these tools like Ouija boards, tarot cards, and that sort of thing, they're tools. I know a lot of people talk about the fact that Ouija boards are evil and they open up the door to demons and so on and
they
so forth.
absolutely are.
And
They absolutely are.
they do have issues. I guess my viewpoint on them though is they're just like any other tool. I mean, you could use a hammer to hammer a nail into a wall and build a house, but you could also use that hammer to bash somebody in the head and kill them. So
at that point, though, we differ because it's definitely, to me, a portal. I've seen too many, just the last year, Ira, too many instances of people that I've had to clear and do demonic releases for and any attachment releases.
It does seem like they're
directly
negatively
involved
skewed.
with that.
Yeah, it does
absolutely
seem
are.
like they're negatively skewed one way or the other.
Yeah, they absolutely are. But like past life releases, I teach people how to open their gifts. I teach protection because I don't feel that anyone should be afraid, and I don't ever charge for that. And then you and I, I've done several interviews on many networks with black-eyed children, shadow people, different experiences and stories, things like that. And then I also wrote 2 children's books too, No More Monsters and I Am Energy, which are available on barnesandnoble.com and amazon.com. And they're really good storybooks. They're good for any child, but they were especially geared for gifted children to help a child who's born with their gifts understand their gifts and not be afraid of their gifts and open up their gifts, as well as being able to use their energy in a positive way for other children that they encounter, for their family lives. They're very, very interesting. I have 2 more in the series that aren't published yet, and I do have a full-length novel that's ready to come out as well. And I do occasional shows as well. So yeah, I pretty much run the gambit.
Do you sleep?
What's that?
Do you sleep?
Not very much lately. Not very much lately, as you know. We talk about that all the time. And then we've got the Positive Podcast, so that's a wonderful thing. I love that show.
It's a really good show. It's kind of a unique one. I've not really heard many other shows that are just geared strictly towards positivity. We do things like guided meditation on it. Sometimes there's like every other week we do a guided meditation on there and bring out really cool positive stories and a nice learning experience for people.
I love it. It's definitely been a project that I've grown to love, and I hope to see it flourish. And the main reason that we came out with this was to be able to help people and to have people have something to listen to in a very negative world that just gives them an hour, a shot in the arm of happiness and positivity and holistic healing and recipes. I mean, we cover music. We've got a lot of music. It just covers everything. And it's great. It's wonderful. And it definitely is a new format. When I was shown this format, I was shown very specifically how to do it. And it was very regimented. And I'm very thankful for that because that's a lot of the reason that it's been successful for us is because, I was shown a specific format to follow that's very different from anything else that's out there. Although I do suspect that will be copied and duplicated here as time goes on because it's so different and fresh.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, so let's get into some spirit things.
Sure.
I know you've been doing some work as far as like spiritual attachments go. And you've kind of been doing that throughout your whole career, your life, basically. I mean, your life is your career, basically, with this. But so I know you've had a lot of experience with dealing with people that have different spiritual attachments. So maybe let's go into some of that. How do you tell when someone has an entity that's attached to them in some way?
Entity attachments and demonic possession are very, very different in nature. And because I'm empathic, I can feel it right away. And in many cases, if it's quite evil, I can feel it from miles or even hours away. And I do some remote viewing. I've never been formally schooled in that. It's just something that comes to me naturally. So typically when I'm asked to do a ghost investigation, or if someone's having problems with one of their relatives in the home, I try and tune in before I go and just get a feel for the energy. And I usually know before I go pretty much what I'm going to encounter, although not always. I mean, sometimes it's hiding. If there's something very evil there and it doesn't want to come out because it doesn't want to be cleared, then it can go under and it could kind of mask itself. It can quiet itself down. And so I've had experiences with that as well. But as far as entity attachments go, specifically, some of the, well, first of all, I should tell you that, a lot of your life habits, a lot of people don't realize, but your life habits can definitely make a difference as to whether or not you're opening the door for entity or spirit attachments.
So are you meaning
And
things like alcohol and drug abuse, or are you meaning other things as well?
absolutely, alcohol and drug abuse are big
I
ones
know those are the big
in New York.
gateways for it. Yeah, that's in my experiences. That's what I've seen is encountering people that have had experiences in the past with drug abuse or alcohol abuse or something along those lines. And even if they quit, they still have some kind of an attachment to them,
Mhm.
even years later.
Absolutely. And those tools that we were speaking about earlier, Ouija boards, tarot cards, anything like that you're using that's not positive and of the light, you're opening up the door for the negativity to come in. Old objects, even from yard sales, or if you're in an older home and there's some
Yeah.
energy there, if there are some spirits that are there, they can attach to you.
Yep, I've
And
seen that too.
yeah, so, but it's, you see so many movies and shows on television, and it's very much over dramatized. It wasn't as common an occurrence, at least for me in my experience, several years ago. But as the energy changes on the planet, I've seen more and more instances of it more recently, and more serious instances. As particularly demonic as opposed to an entity attachment. Whereas a couple years ago, it was more entity attachments, and someone would have an experience with another person, and right away, oh, they're possessed. It wasn't always that way before, but it is getting worse now. And some of the signs to look for is if you have somebody, frequent mood changes, if they're using a substance and their moods are changing, their eyes, look at their eyes, if their eyes are shifting and changing. If they do things that are out of character for them, something they wouldn't normally do, if they're argumentative, if they vocalize, very, very, using bad words or screaming and yelling. I mean, now somebody that's not of the paranormal or doesn't have a lot of experience with that would say to me, well, that could be, just as a result of the substance abuse, or that could be a result of a mental disorder. And that's certainly the case. And that's where it becomes tricky if you're not experienced in this kind of field, is it's sometimes hard to pinpoint for an outsider or someone who doesn't have experience to be able to tell. Is it a mental disorder? Is it the substance abuse? Or is it a real entity attachment? And so that's why I don't like to over dramatize it. I like to, but I feel it, see, and that's the difference. I can feel the energy and tell.
The empathic
Um,
thing is definitely a big part of it, I think, for
it's
those that are
absolutely a
trying to help with
bonus.
that healing
Yeah.
process.
Yeah. I mean, and that doesn't mean, and that's not to say that an ordinary person couldn't pick up on it, because the calls that I get are from ordinary family members. You know what I mean?
Well, that's exactly it. I believe that everybody has empathic abilities. They're absolutely ingrained as part of our human experience. But for some reason, some people they just drift away from them over the years.
Absolutely. We all have these gifts, and we're all able to open up to them, and I offer classes on that as well. And I do a lot of stuff on Skype too. So it's really cool because I have people all over the country that aren't able to come to me and that I'm not able to travel to, but I'm able to help them online. So there's something to be said for modern technology, even though I'm not a guru at it. I'm, very, very basic in my knowledge, and I'd like to keep it that way. But some of the traits to look for is, mood changes, changes in the eyes. I mean, I've had some pretty horrible experiences where people are being woken up in the night and, their spouse or their child is choking them, or, children abusing other children. Anything like that is something you want to pay attention to, and, call in somebody who's experienced to have them be able to distinguish, and look at your family history as well. Is there a family history of mental disease or alcoholism or drug abuse? And, these are all ways to tell. But with me, it's a feeling. So typically, if I'm called, I'll go to the place. I like to go to the place where the energy originates from, where the person is spending a lot of their time, because then I'm able to go through the home and be able to pick out if it's something that they picked up in the home, from an older residence maybe, or from a residence that's on a not very pure ground. I had a case that I did that lasted several years, actually. The whole development is infested, so, you can build a house on property that, is a beautiful, beautiful home, but the property, the originations of the property can be a problem. So at that point, when I go in, I evaluate the home, I assess the family members, evaluate the person in question, and I'm able to feel it. And like I said, many times from miles away as I'm driving in. And the closer that I get, the energy gets more intense. So that makes it interesting.
Oh, yeah, that definitely does.
And then, as far as a spirit attachment or an entity attachment, it's a simple clearing that I do. And it's very quiet. It's not like the movies. It's not a lot of screaming and yelling. And it's not like that at all. And it involves, in my instances, I do only prayer work, only spiritual work. And it's everything that's, from the light.
So was that a little dig at the little ghost adventures shows that are out there where they come in and screaming at the ghosts and stuff?
Well, we've talked about that on past interviews. I mean, ghosts are not hard of hearing unless they're of the geriatric set.
Yeah.
They hear us, we hear them. They can hear your thoughts,
Well, my thing is the way that I look at it. The way that I look at it is you never would go into somebody's house and just start screaming obscenities at them or screaming at them, you come out right now, I mean, that's not going to get you very far in somebody's house.
They're past spirits. The soul doesn't die, so they're just like they were in life. They have the same characteristics and personality traits that they would if they were still alive.
And the same emotions, And
the same emotions. You wouldn't go into someone's house and disrespect them. Why would you go into a house where there's an entity or a spirit? You could have
one that's going to take that and follow you home.
Yeah, and that's another reason why I really stress to people that do ghost hunting and want to be psychics. You really need to learn the basics of protection before you get involved into things like that, and that's why I became so involved in spiritual warfare, because I had several instances where I was born gifted, but I've never been formally schooled. So I get myself into a situation, and I did at one point have something follow me home several years ago that had to be cleared. And it took a lot of work, so protection is essential. You need to know how to use spiritual protection before you go into a residence, and you need to clear yourself after you leave, before you leave the parking lot, actually.
Do you have anything available website wise or book wise or anything like that to help people get educated as far as that goes, or have you not done anything like that yet?
No, everything that I do is very, very, it's strictly for the particular person and their case. So everything that I do with that, and as I said, I don't charge for the protection, is on a one-on-one. People will email me, call me, text me through the website, on Facebook, and I will contact them. If I can't get them by Skype, I will get them by phone, or I will email them, and everything is totally customized to their particular case, because everybody's case is different. Sometimes they need a little more protection. Sometimes I can do a deliverance for them right over the airwaves, so that they're at least a little more protected. The problem, though, with this type of thing is that for an entity attachment or even the demonic possession, is that once you clear the person in the household, if that person is still subject to the same types of behavior, it can always come back. And that's one of the problems that I have in my field, is if you clear someone, the person or the family thinks right away, okay, I'm good. But once they go back to those old habits, you're opening up the door again. So it can come back, and it comes stronger when it comes back.
The thing that I've experienced as far as that goes is that, we all have this pattern of emotions and experiences that are on us that we kind of mold ourselves into. And if you don't do anything to change the pattern of things, whatever situation you were in can be right back again. So the pathway for these entities that they used to get inside of you and to affect you is still there and wide open and able for them to use. So it's basically you could kick them off of the path or off of their doorstep, but then that person goes through their life with the exact same things, and that entity comes right back onto the doorstep again.
Exactly. And when it comes back, it's more powerful.
Yes.
And something that I've experienced with entity attachments is there's not always just one. Sometimes it's a matter of several of them. And the same thing with the deliverance. There can be more than one demon involved. And that also, it's an evaluation process. It's something that I feel. Um, when I'm talking to a client, excuse me, and it's a spirit, an entity attachment, um, I try and educate the whole family and everyone around them that what you need to do from this point on is you really need to change your habits. And, prayer and meditation and spiritual cleansing is needed on a regular basis, whether, you're prone to saging your home or cleaning your home with incense or frankincense, but you definitely need to have the strength within. Because if you don't purify from within, you're subject to that coming back again and again and again. And it can affect, it can jump. They do jump. It happens all the time.
Absolutely. Yep.
So now in the case of a possession, it's a little bit more intense. I mean, the energy is a lot stronger. In a possession case, typically, and it's classic for me, it's been like this every single time. Before I go, I feel it. It's extremely strong. When I get there, I have had instances where it will hide. And I actually had one case where I went out to the woman's house and I brought my ghost hunters with me so that we could record while the person that was afflicted was out of the home. And so that we could kind of help them to recognize what was going on because the person afflicted didn't want to realize it, but the family did. And so it was quiet. It was hiding out. We could feel the energy, but it wouldn't present. And so it was at that point that I knew a couple of things, actually. First, I could feel that there was more than one. And second, that it was a lot more powerful and a lot sneakier. They're very, very deceptive and manipulative. I mean, I work with healers and readers, and I see attachments on them, some of the time, and they don't even realize it.
Absolutely.
So,
well, listen, real quick, we do need to hit a break real fast. Let's go ahead and hit the break, and when we come back, we can get right back into that. How's that sound to you?
sounds like a plan.
All right. You guys are listening to Late Night in the Midlands. My name is Ira Robinson. Hopefully you're enjoying the show tonight as much as we are. You guys can join us in the chat room over at lnmradionetwork.com. While you're over there, make sure to subscribe and you guys can get access to all of the archives. And if you want to hear my own personal shows, I'm at openeyesnetwork.com as well as YouTube at youtube.com/C/Open Eyes Network. We'll be back in just a few minutes. My name is Ira Robinson. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the show tonight so far. I know I'm having a great old time, and it's an interesting little Saturday night for us here. And hopefully you guys will tune in to lnmradionetwork.com. We have shows available there all the time. You guys can get access to the archives and enjoy what we bring you every night, every weeknight, 9 p.m. to midnight Eastern Standard Time. That's when we go live, and it's always a great show. Hopefully you guys take advantage of it. So we're back with Maggie Heart tonight. Maggie is the psychic connoisseur. She's awesome. I love talking to Maggie and having an interesting conversation with her. So Maggie Heart, we are back. Are you still with us?
I sure am.
Awesome. So before we took the break there, we were talking about entity attachments. I'd like to go ahead and give you a chance to continue on now.
Okay, well, the difference between that and a demonic possession, the energy is much, much stronger with a possession. The eyes definitely, you can see the flashes. Sometimes they change color. The person's voice will become very, very deep and growly. The language will be much more vulgar and very hateful. And as I was saying before, demons are very deceptive and they know your life story. So it makes it kind of interesting when you have a stranger that you've never met before that's possessed start to tell you personal things about you and twist them around so that they lower your self-esteem. They can make you feel like a horrible, or try to make you feel like a horrible person. It's a lot of times it's a very, very personal attack on something, one of your life experiences, let's say. For instance, if you're divorced and you're coming up against something like this, they may tell you that you're a horrible mother, or you weren't a good parent to your child, or how you failed at parenthood or at marriage, something like that. I mean, they really can get very nasty. And in a case like that, again, deliverance, it can be very, very quiet. It can be very, very peaceful. It's not always the yelling and screaming that you see on television. I've had some really extreme cases where I've walked into homes and things are banging on the walls. Things are flying. I've been yanked. I've been, brought down. Before I did a lot more with my training in spiritual warfare. But, they can get very physical and it can get very, very scary. And that's another reason that people that aren't experienced really shouldn't be messing with things like this because number one, it can take over you.
Oh, yeah.
And number two, they can be extremely powerful. People tend to underestimate. And we were talking about the Ouija boards and things before. And one of the things that I just wanted to touch on really briefly is that a lot of people feel that those things are just a tool. And in my experience, my very own personal experience, and people that I've had to clear, and a lot of times they don't even know that I'm clearing them, except for when I ask them to say amen. Let me say a little prayer over you, is that they've actually got the attachments and they don't realize it. And so they go along day to day thinking that they're just fine. And they go along doing the spell work or the Ouija boards, and things like that. And the energy becomes stronger and stronger within them. But again, it's very, very deceptive. So they just think that there's nothing wrong with them. They don't realize that they have these attachments. And, you see it a lot in my field. Like I said, healers or readers alike, many, many of them are afflicted and don't realize it. And personally speaking, I consider it a very regular, my regimen is very, very strict. I do a lot of spiritual work right now, so I make sure that I keep myself clean. But my discernment has grown so strong. It's not even funny that I'm able to pick it out. And it's kind of unsettling at times because when you're able to see it, especially in today's society, you almost see it everywhere you look. You know what I mean? You have to be really careful, but there's so much of it out there and it's just rising on the planet. And we are essentially in the end times. We are facing the eternal battle. It's here of good and evil. And as the energy rises, so does the good, absolutely, but the evil does as well, So with a demonic possession, there's definitely a change in the voice. It's definitely more vulgar. It's meaner. It's more evil. The energy is so incredibly strong. It's almost tangible. A lot of times when I do that type of work, it's the whole family can very easily be affected. And when you do a deliverance, as I was saying before, there could be one, there could be more, so in that case, it becomes a process. And physically, I can feel it. I've had a lot of times that people cry. It's almost a release. And so it'll come up and then I can feel it rising. Some people get the names of the demon as they're clearing them. I'm not that way. I always see the face. I always see what they look like, the eyes, the teeth, things like that. And so I get the visual. And so I'm not able to call them out by name most of the time. I call them out by their vision, what they look like. And so, I can have one that comes up out of the body and the person sometimes will shake, sometimes they'll quiver, sometimes they'll cry. Sometimes they'll scream a little bit, sometimes they'll gasp, sometimes they just kind of sit there, but you can see the eyes change, and you'll just bring them up and keep clearing until they're all gone. And, but then again, as I said, it's a matter of the person changing their ways, and if it's a house, well, then we just clear the energy out of the house and we do, ground blessings and we just get rid of it that way. And the ministry that I'm attached to, some of the cases we use 2 and 3 of us to do certain types of work, and some of them, most of it, you can do by yourself, if you're properly ordained. So,
in my experience dealing with these entities, one aspect that I think is important to recognize is that you also have to have the person's permission for it too, because they can hold on to them.
That's
if they don't want
part
them.
Of it. That's a wonderful, wonderful point to mention. That's the biggest part. The person needs to give you permission to be cleared. You can do an overall blessing and pray for the family or do meditations, whatever your religious background is, on the person and on the family. But at the end of the day, for an actual release, for an actual deliverance, you do need that person's permission.
Yeah, like when you do a blessing, it'll suppress them, but that suppression only lasts a little bit of time because that person that's grasping hold of that entity, whether it's I think sometimes it's subconscious because we get used to the feelings that we're feeling. They get addictive. So those addictions, just like alcohol, just like drugs, we get addicted to the emotions too. So these emotions of anger, they might feel like without the anger, and it may be the entity too is fooling them into thinking this, that the anger, without the anger, they'd be nothing. They wouldn't have anything, or they'd just sit there depressed or something like that. Things along those lines.
Well, like I said, they're very deceptive. They're very
Oh
manipulative.
yeah.
But, the main thing right there is discernment. You need to be able to establish if it is not just a legitimate mental disorder, if it's not just, a narcotic or a drug or, an alcohol addiction, or if it's an attachment. And sometimes, frequently, what I see is it's a combination of all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So discernment definitely becomes an issue. And like I said, in our cases, we're very blessed because we're able to feel it, and so that makes all the difference in the world. But, one of the things I just want to stress to people is it's so important to use self-protection, and it's so important to have a really good sense of discernment, because otherwise you can really get yourself into trouble. And I see it every day. I clear ghost hunters. I have a team that works with me. You really have to make sure that you protect yourself. A lot of these people are doing, amateur ghost hunts and amateur readings, and, they really have no idea what they're getting involved in. And essentially, a lot of the clearing that I do on a daily basis, just like when I come upon someone happenstance, a colleague, let's say, is I'm clearing them. They just don't realize it, because they've walked into a home, they've done an investigation, and they haven't properly protected themselves, and they don't know how to experience. They don't feel what I feel. You know what I'm saying? So they don't recognize it. It's
right.
kind of creepy.
We had a question that came in from the chat room for you. They said, if you open yourself up to these things, can't that invite demons as well?
That's exactly what I'm saying. That's why internally you need to have the strength of spirit. You need to have your faith behind you. You need to have a very strong belief structure. Yeah. You need to use the proper protection. Okay? It's essential. It's essential.
Yep, indeed. So let's maybe talk a little bit about that protection stuff. We've got about 10 minutes or so that are left.
Sure.
Why don't we talk a little bit about protection? What would you recommend as far as, fledgling people that are out there, people that are just kind of opening their eyes to this stuff and realizing that they have this ability to discern when things are there? What would you recommend for them to do? I mean, besides maybe getting connected with, people that are involved in a ministry of some kind that do this kind of specific work and training of things, without going that route, perhaps what can they do?
Well, the main thing that is you have to have strong faith. You have to have a strong belief structure. And you have to know that first of all, you need to be working with the light, okay? Because if you're not, you're just opening yourself up to that kind of thing. So,
and when you mean faith, you're not speaking one particular religion or denomination or anything like that. It's just a faith of some kind in a higher power, right?
Yeah. I mean, you and I know we've talked about my visions of the future, and we both concur on what's coming.
Right.
And so my faith and my belief structure is that, there's one higher power, there's a God, and that's it, And so that's where my faith structure comes from.
And then there's also the angels and all that stuff that are there too.
Angels. Yep. And so, that's where it comes from for me. That's what's made me, my gosh, since I've been working more with the spiritual warfare, and since I became involved in this particular sect that I'm working with now, it's become increasingly more powerful. The main thing is not to be afraid. And that's going to come from a strong belief system. So if you're coming from a place of light and you're coming from a place of inner strength, then you know that light is always stronger than dark, and nothing can touch you. And
that's the key, is knowing.
The essence of it. That's the essence of it. They're like dogs. They smell fear. And if they think they can get to you, especially when you're facing something that's bringing up your deepest, darkest, times, your dark nights of the soul, whether it be a divorce or an abuse situation, what have you, they're going to play on that. Trust me. They'll bring that out. They will throw it in your face. Some of the stronger ones, they're going to throw everything at you personally that are your weak spots to try and break you down, to try and create an instance of, questioning and doubt. When you do spiritual warfare, they attack three different things, the unholy. It's your finances, your personal health, and your personal relations. And time again, the main thing that they look to do is break up families, to break up partners. It's all a matter of discord. That's what they thrive on. That's what they feed on. That's what makes them stronger. And anytime they can separate a loved one from a family, or a loved one from another family member, or they can attack your finances and break you that way so that you feel, you know what, I don't want to help people anymore. I can't afford it. I need to get a paying job. And as you know, a lot of the work that I do, especially with the sick and the suffering, is non gratis, just because I'm here to
Yep.
do it for a reason. You know, we were all put here to help each other. And that's not my main goal in life. If I wanted to get rich, you know, I would have been charging people hundreds of dollars all along.
That's
Do
one
I
of the
need to
things
make a
that
living? Yeah, absolutely. But if there's someone in need and someone that can't afford it, that, you know, that takes precedence to me, for
that's one
me.
of the things that made me realize that you were as legit as you are, is the fact that
Thank you.
you just, you're like, oh yeah, no problem, I'll help out, and there's no expectation of reward at the end. You're just doing it because you care,
if
and
it's a legitimate case of somebody that really needs help, and but let me just say that in light of that, I've also been burned a couple times off of the years,
oh yeah.
because you do have the people that are tag-alongs that will call you every 5 minutes, that'll call you 2 o'clock in the morning, so I mean, I do need to charge for many things. I charge, but it's a reasonable rate. It's not something that's unreasonable. And if it's a case where I feel that the person really can't afford it and needs the help, well, that's my judgment call to make.
Right, exactly.
That's an internal thing. You know what I mean?
But
So
that's what I was meaning, though, is just the fact that that is an option with you.
absolutely, yeah,
That's amazing to me.
yeah. But I mean, it's like anything else. You don't go to the gas station and expect your gas for free, or grocery store. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, it's with me. It's a matter of within. If I feel somebody really needs it. The problem that I have is, like we were talking about before, you kind of got the repeat business. I mean, I had a client for almost 2 years, and I am not kidding you. And she insisted on coming twice a week. And she wasn't doing her own work. She wasn't changing herself from within. And so what was happening was we did some past life regression. And I mean, there was some serious, serious past life stuff going on. And so I was coaching her on healing. I was coaching her on personal assessment. I was coaching her on life path. I was helping her pretty much in every department of her life. And I kept telling her over and over again, honey, you're coming here, but you're not doing your homework. You're coming here so that I can clear the energy, but you're coming back the next week and it's just as bad. And eventually I had to let it go, because I couldn't, first of all, it was a waste of my time. And second of all, it was a waste of her money. I couldn't see charging her and taking that money over and over again when she wasn't doing the work that she needed to clear herself. And as a result, it was affecting my relationship with her, because she'd come, I'd clear her, I'd do a healing. We do chakra alignment. We would do past life. Like I said, past life was a huge issue with her. And then she'd go home and pray to her dragons. You know what I mean? And fight with her husband. And she had attachments. There was problems in the house. I cleared the home several times. The energy just came right back because she was doing the same thing the next day. So in a case like that, I've got to let people like that go. I was driven, I was told, only to help the ones that truly, believe and have the faith system and want to help themselves and want to learn uh, the the love and the higher power, your creator. If you're not going to do that, then you're really just wasting my time. And I was at a point where I thought I could save the whole world for many, many years, and it was a very harsh reality for me to turn around and have to face the fact that, you know what, some people, it's not that I would turn a blind eye, it's not that I would ignore them, but if I see that they're not looking to help themselves and they're not looking to strengthen their spiritual awareness and themselves within, then I really can't waste my time on them, because there are too many more people out there that really are they're coming aware, they're awakening, and they want to know, what can I do to be a better person? What can I do to help humanity? What can I do to strengthen my family bonds?
It's all part
And
of
so
that. It's all part of the journey too, that
it
some
is,
people, they're
yeah,
just not ready for it at that moment, but you've at least given them the knowledge of things. And that's what's
yeah.
important. Later on, it'll click in their heads and say, oh yeah, I remember what she said, 2 years ago, or whatever the case may be. We've got just a few minutes that are left. I want to make sure that you have enough time to get out, how people can get a hold of you, what websites you have, where are your books at? Because your books are fabulous. I love your books.
Thank you.
And I love that they're geared for kids. That's the important thing with it too.
Yeah, well, to be quite honest with you, my illustrator studied at Goldsmiths in London, and she's great. I love her. She's a wonderful, wonderful person. she got married and had a baby, and she's been really busy, and so we haven't had time to put the other two out. Those are definitely a short-term goal. The full-length novel was a priority there for a while, and because I get my intuition straight from source, straight from God and the angels, it wasn't really that important to me after a while. I mean, I needed to get it written, I needed to get it on paper, and then once I got it out of me, the kind of the the urgency to get it published and out on the market. I don't need to be on Oprah next week. It doesn't matter to me how many people buy my books right now. It's more important to me that I work with the people that need it. So I put that on the back burner, and I'm focusing more on the spiritual stuff right now, which is where I need to be. But Maggie Heart is www.maggieheart.com. That's my website that Ira and his beautiful wife Jolene created for me. I love it. Very, very thankful for that. Maggie Heart, Heart on Skype. Maggie Heart, Maggie Heart at outlook.com is my email. And then on Facebook, it is a private Facebook, but it's Maggie-Violet Nile. That's my technical business name. And then we have the Positive Podcast. We have the first and third Sundays of the month. But on Facebook, some people have said they've had problems getting a hold of me. So just, if you can't, send me an email and I'll accept you. I think it's my privacy settings. I haven't opened it up to the public just because with doing interviews, we have so many trolls out there, and I've had problems with that. So I had to be a little bit, again, with the discernment, a little bit more careful about who I accept. But,
I definitely understand that all too well. Yeah, if you guys want to catch the Positive Podcast again, that'll be available at openeyesnetwork.com. That's my own personal website. I have all of my shows there. I've got Open Eyes. That's my show that airs Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I have Brothers at Arms, which I co-host with my brother Joe. That one airs on Thursdays at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Positive Podcast is on Sundays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the first and third Sundays of every month. I'm also co-host of Money and Change, which airs on Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Stu Shear. That one is a financially geared show for all of you out there that are interested in financial matters. It's a great show. Definitely recommend going there and listening to it. All of our shows also are available on YouTube at youtube.com/C/Open Eyes Network. And I also put out videos every day. A lot of times they're news videos or news blurbs, that kind of thing that I run across and I feel are important for people to be paying attention to. So make sure that if you go over there to YouTube, again, youtube.com/C/Open Eyes Network, subscribe to the channel there, and you guys can get the notifications of when I put out new videos. Now, Maggie, we've got just a couple of minutes that are left here. I want to go ahead and give you time. What would you say is like final message to people? What would you like to have people hear as your last thoughts on the show tonight?
Well, you asked about methods of protection before, and having the strength of faith, not having fear. One of the things that I suggest, I mean, if you're just like basic, along with that is you can sprinkle holy water. Some people burn sage. Frankincense is very helpful in getting rid of negative energy. Sea salt, and you and I have talked about it on previous interviews. I know you're a fan of that. I got you hooked on it. I'm real happy that, but sea salt is a wonderful cleanser too of negativity. And so anything like that can help you. And please get a hold of me. And as I said, my advice is all specified to the person in their case. So there's no blanket, but those are some things that will help you in if you're having some problems in the home or with a person. Definitely make sure that the person that you're contacting is reputable, and make sure that if you're getting a reading or a healing, that it is somebody that's of the light. And I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for this, and I really don't care. If you're letting anything into your body and you're channeling, it's not of the light. You may be getting accurate readings, but it's not of the light. And that's going to come back and bite you later. So.
That's been my experience as well, yeah.
Absolutely. The other thing that just please be kind to everybody, help each other, form small networks in your communities, community garden, listen to our show. Positive Podcast has a lot of helpful information on there on herbs and natural recipes, holistic recipes, things like that. Get to know your neighbors. It's coming upon us where eventually we're only going to have each other to depend on. And, we need to really have a strong sense of family and a network in our community. in order to be able to survive as the times get harder and harder.
Sounds great, Maggie. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I definitely appreciate you coming on at last minute notice. And
thanks for having me.
Definitely a great show.
From a secret, undisclosed location in the mountains. I'm here visiting family. This was impromptu, but it worked out well.
It did indeed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here. I definitely appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, Ira. Thank you.
Bye-bye. So, guys, you guys have been listening to Late Night in the Midlands. Make sure you go to lnmradionetwork.com. You can pick up the archives of all of the shows that we do. We air 24 hours a day, 7 days a week over there. lnmradionetwork.com. It's a great site, great archives available. Literally thousands upon hours of shows to listen to over there. So make sure you guys are taking advantage. We'll talk to you again soon. Keep safe out there and have fun. And thanks for tuning in.